Good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Wendy Silvers, and you have arrived at the Awakened Mother Show. Live, raw, unfiltered, uncensored dialogues with leading edge visionaries, spiritual teachers, moms, dads, professionals whose work, whose life is devoted to the empowerment and the upliftment of women, moms, and kids to ensure that we together are creating a better world for the children. And today I am so happy to share with you someone whose paths we our paths crossed quite a long time ago. And we have been part of the same spiritual community, but we have a lot of interweaving commonalities, as you will discover. So I want to share her with you. Her name is Hillary Rubin, and she offers common sense, soulful guidance for soon to be or newly divorced co parents seeking peace for their kids. We are going to dive deep into the transformational path called divorce. And Hillary will share with you all that she knows based on her own experience moving through this process. Let me tell you a little bit about her. In 2016, she walked away from her successful coach and coach training business, The Art of Becoming a Coach, to raise her son. Hillary has been featured in the Huffington Post, Los Angeles Times, Yoga Journal, Inspired Coach magazine, among others. 3 years ago, she lived in the same house as her husband of 16 years, trapped in constant conflict and felt numb with the fear about getting divorced. Can anyone out there relate to that? It was the most disorienting experience of her life. She made a brave decision to seek support, crafted a plan, and took the initiative to file for divorce. She found the strength to move out, create a new home, and start anew as a single mother at 50. And now she's here to help you navigate your way through separation, or the big D, aka divorce, while you co parent peacefully, building a new life again and putting your kids first. Never worry again about how to deal with your co parent or feel like you failed your kids for getting divorced. That stigma is that vapors of that stigma still exists. So we'll talk about that. No more feeling lost or alone on your journey. It's time to take charge of your life. Hillary will show you how to change your mindset, create certainty as you take care of yourself along with your kids and move through this challenging life experience. So, welcome to the stage, Hillary.
Ah,
Hi. So glad
I'm
that you're here.
so happy to be here. I mean, we definitely have navigated very parallel. We've had a very parallel experience and have come in and out. And so I'm really excited to be here and share, a lot about this initiation that I call the Big D divorce.
It's a
And
big it's a big life shift. It's a big life shift, and so it's important to have someone. I often say to people, if you want help with navigating your life, with if you want to raise healthy children, if you want to change the world, begin with yourself, right? go
yeah,
go out. So this process, I know we both are from New York. We both were in PR. You were in fashion, and I was in the entertainment industry. And we take our skills, we take our life experience into everything that we do. Because once you do PR, once you've worked on, I worked on multiple campaigns for celebrities and films and projects. But once you have that mindset, don't you find you take that into everything that you do?
yeah. I mean, it just is a life before this, right? Before phones, before all of it. I mean, we have that as well. So it was a very different way of moving through the world. And yeah, I mean, it just building the experience and hitting the pavement, pounding the pavement and rolling up your sleeves and getting stuff done. And it just kind of it doesn't kind of, it wires your brain for how you interact with the world, right? And how you become more resourceful and what you see. I mean, like any experience, the minute we have it, it's all these initiations, right? Our
Yeah.
life is a bunch of initiations, and excuse me. And once you do that, then your identity shifts, and then you see things that change. I mean, there are so many things that come along with that. So yeah, it was so much fun, and all of those skills are useful, right?
Absolutely. So, how did you meet your husband, and what prompted you, compelled you to uh, get married?
Well, I don't know what's going on with my throat, but I mean, I wasn't married. I was teaching yoga from fashion. I went into becoming a yoga teacher because I had a huge health thing. And I was teaching
Do you want to
yoga.
say more about that? Excuse me for interrupting you, but I think that it's remarkable how you talk about an initiation. I think of the different passages of experiences that we go through, like as initiation. So you went through a radical health transformation. Can you speak about that? Because I really think it
Yeah,
speaks to your inner fortitude.
definitely. I moved to New York City and had to go in fashion and be in the fashion industry, and so focused on the outside. It's what you look like, what you're wearing. I mean, it was very superficial. And what allowed me to deal with that superficial world and pounding the pavement was when I found yoga. And I found yoga and meditation, and always have been very spiritual, and really looking at like there's something more to everything. And then I got a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis that literally was like, whoa, and I had to go down this path of not accepting the diagnosis, and what the doctors were not giving me a very good future. And so I went in another direction, deeper into yoga, diet, and all those things, and lived in New York City at the time. And I did pretty well. And then I knew I had to leave New York City. And I really got so much into yoga that I decided to do a yoga teacher training in LA. And so I left and moved to LA and did yoga teacher training, and I did PR on the side, and I was able to make that happen. I burned the bridge and did that. And even with the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, I mean, that's like I was coaching people with autoimmune stuff and health stuff, right? And so for me, naturally, when I turn my pain into passion, it's kind of a thing. And
Yeah.
I am here to help people. And so I did that, but it just, a lot of people who end up with diagnosis get the identity, they don't want to let go of it. And it's not even that they're a victim to it. It's just that they own it. And it was not a thing for me to do. And it wasn't enough people that were like wanting to get into that. And so it just evolved. And then I got into coaching, and and then from coaching, it just, everything just kind of kept stepping. I went into coach training and training people, because to me, it's great to have a certification, and you can get a coach with certification, get like a 25-year-old or 20-year-old who goes through a yoga certification that doesn't have life experience. I don't know how well they're going to help you with like what you're going through, because they haven't gone through it. It's like, really, it's just, for me personally, I like to know that somebody has gone through the journey, so then I can learn from the mistakes, or that I know that that person can help me to move me forward. So I created a coach training program, and and then walked away to raise my kid, and now I'm back, because I really learned a lot, living under the same roof for 3 years, and my head in the sand. And it's the denial can be huge, and the fear of the overwhelm and the uncertainty, especially because I was at that point a stay-at-home mom.
Right. So let's talk
And
about
I walked away. Sorry.
let's back up and talk about the when you're in a marriage. So you were with your husband for 16 years.
Yeah.
And what I want to share with people is it's never that one thing. It's never just like all of a sudden you realize oh, I just, it's a series of things that happen. And then there's that one thing that tips you over the edge, right? And you're like, I'm done. But it's the times that you have spent thinking about, okay, is this right? Is this not right? So can you speak to that for anybody who's with us, who's in that process? Like, do I stay? Do I go? This is, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can. I mean, the first thing is this is therapy is key, right? We did therapy for many years. If you were in a relationship that you're going, I'm done, you got to look at both sides of it. You got to look at your side and the other person's side. There's so many aspects. For me, I knew that our attachment styles were very different. Me being anxious, him being avoidant. And it was the consistency of we could do therapy, we could do these things, and stuff wasn't changing. It just wasn't, and it was like, how long are we going to do this if we have a great therapy session and we're like, okay, we're good now, we found peace, because your therapist is a mediator, and then you get to communicate. And then if it doesn't continue, if change doesn't happen, it becomes evident that like this isn't going anywhere. And women tend to be the initiator to doing therapy and moving in that direction, because we're really stuck on perfection, and we also end up marrying a project a lot of the times. So the truth is, you know what I mean? Like, we've got to make him become something else as opposed to letting him be who he is. And then we do the work and then really becoming a team. And so it was very evident for me now when I look back that we were not a team in a lot of ways. We were more in competition. And
What does
if
that
you're
mean? What does that mean? How does that show
what
up?
that means is this, is if you're in a marriage, and you're like, this isn't working anymore. Now, I'm not talking about cheating and all that, if you're having affairs or whatever, like that's like, I'm just talking of the relationship. If the needs are not being met, if the people are not able to support each other, and what I'm saying is there was a lack of polarity. So it wasn't like masculine, feminine, it was like two men, and there was competition. I had to work. I was like, I'm going to make more money than you, or whatever. It was competition. So there were moments when like when I walked away from my business, I literally fell on my face and I was burnt out, and I got really depressed, and I needed someone to come along and say to me, wow, I've never seen you like this before. Let's figure out what we need to do. Okay. That's not really what our marriage was like. It just wasn't in a lot of ways. I would be the one, listen, I was a jerk whenever I was because of my triggers and stuff. But it's like, it was at a point where I would say, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for? And the answers never came. And the therapy, and we did it. And it just was very clear when I say competition. I mean, you can look at your relationship and say, are we more brother, sister? Are we more like roommates? Was there ever a spark of love? Is your sex life really a great sex life? I mean, you just go through the wheel and look at it and be honest. Like, why did you get married to this person? And when I got really honest with myself of why I got married, it was really evident. And we both knew that it was done. Like, we did, and we did a lot of therapy. So my thing would say is, you gotta not point the finger. You gotta look at yourself, look at what you're bringing to the table, look at what's happening there, and if you're just basically roommates and you're just existing, that's a sign of, hey, either we go and have some therapy or we need to separate. And being really curious about the other person and what's going on, and having empathy, even if you're angry and you think they're a jerk or whatever, is going underneath, because there's triggers or psychology. There's so much to it, to us as human beings. And none of us really we don't learn in school how to be in relationships.
And
Right?
that
We
is
really
something,
need that in school.
and what you spoke to, thank you for sharing all of that, because I want to break that down, because for those of you that are watching, and you may not, or you're listening, depending on what platform you're listening to the Awakened Mother show. So attachment styles. Attachment is so key It's key to parenting and it's key to relationships. So the way that your mother and or father connected with you, the way they reflected back to you, the way that they were with you as a child and attended to your needs is what attachment style is refers to. So somebody who is anxious attachment is somebody who essentially has this that's the way their fear of abandonment manifests. And so they may need a little more reassurance, they may need more connection. So somebody who was told, who wasn't met with their needs and became very self preservation and very, I'm gonna do it myself, has a more avoidant style. So it's much harder for them to be intimate, to be present, to be connected. Both have different styles. Somebody, and you can have somebody who's anxious avoidant. So it alternates. Sometimes you're anxious,
Yeah.
sometimes you're avoidant, but it really speaks to how people, like the puzzle piece. Women, in my experience of working with women, are much more relational, which means they find their tank gets filled up through connection. So somebody who's more avoidant doesn't, that's their growing edge. And typically people that are anxious are, they are attracted to people who are avoidant because it's a different style and it's an opportunity for them to heal some of their anxiousness. And people that are avoidant are often attracted to people who are anxious because they know what will help them is more connection. So therein lies a challenge for a relationship. And you can go to therapy and learn how to be interdependent. And it takes both parties really showing up to want to work on that. Then when you bring a child into the mix, I often say if you want to transform your life, really work on your inner self, get into relationship. If you want to put your transformation on steroids, have a child or children, because it will bring to the surface all of your unmet needs as well as learning how to fulfill your child's needs so that they don't become unmet and manifest in all sorts of strategies that don't serve your child. So thank you, Hillary, for speaking to that, because again, it is really important to be fully in relationship with yourself and your unmet needs so that you don't place that onto another person to fill you, because that will never, ever result in a harmonious marriage or relationship. Yes?
Yeah, I mean it's know thyself, you know. You need you're in the space, you decided to get married, you have kids, you're realizing this isn't working, and it's an amazing invitation, an opportunity to really dive in to look at where you're at. And it's not selfish, it's necessary. And you know, it's interesting because we, you know, with the choice of living under the same roof and really doing, you know, even therapy, the thing that really got me moving was coaching, which was really interesting because it was action oriented. You can hide from your therapist, at least I did, right? You can hide with them and you can talk, and because it's talk therapy, and it doesn't necessarily take action. And so for us, we would sit and we would do it, and then we would have to like go and do homework. Well, guess what? Both parties have to do it. And, you know, it's pretty interesting because you're not failing and you just, again, haven't learned about having a relationship. And so if you're realizing, like, wow, this one's done and we're done, great. Then you have an opportunity to be really clear on what you need to have the relationship with yourself and being really honest. And then again, you have your kids, which is the really the best relationship that you can have is with your kids, because you can heal. And if you do make a mistake, repair is key, because your children need to see you as a human being. And yes, it's a lot when, you know, I moved out. I'm not the one that stayed. and it can be really daunting and you can feel like you failed because the question that comes along is everyone's like, why didn't you get the house? And I just would be like, you think that's really a good question? You think that feels really good? I didn't say it, but it would always be like, and it's a decision that I made because I wasn't interested in stuff. I mean, yes, security is important. That might be a thing that if you're listening right now and you're thinking, oh, you know what, I'm going to stay because I don't know how I'm going to do it. And if you decide to, again, you do. And if it's just that you have this one life. And if you get the support and help, you can really grow and really give a lot to yourself and to your children because I don't see that my kid's going to be messed up. I mean, I come from a divorced home. Yes, it was tricky. I didn't have parents or anyone who was coming to me who were doing repair or saying, hey, I'm really sorry you didn't have a choice in this, because children don't have a choice in divorce. Maybe on a spiritual level they do, you know what I mean? This space
Right.
that like I chose this or whatever you believe in that I believe my son has the resilience to do it. And both of his parents love him, even if we have different styles. However, it's really important to see, that it's really important to see yourself and how you're acting or reacting and really use this time and this initiation. If you're in the beginning stages saying, okay, I really want, I want to sit down and see. And therapy can be very helpful, or getting a coach for both of you to really figure it out. But men have a tendency to go, I'm not going to do it. And well, if that's going to be the way, then maybe it's going to be taking the steps because you're saying, I want to get separated and this isn't working for me. And it isn't about fighting. This is really, I spoke to a friend who was like, it's about fighting. It's a fight. And I was like, no, it's a chess game. And it's literally the big D is it's an opportunity, it's initiation, it's a place for a spiritual practice, and there's going to be a business deal, right? You've got to separate and you've got to go through the business part of it, which is the one reason that women stay married, because that becomes scary and becomes daunting and overwhelming. And so there's baby steps to take. And if you stay under the same roof because you're concerned about your kids, nesting, there's so many different ways to do it. That's, useful. I just knew at a point, like you were saying, there was a point that it was, I got to get out and I got to move out and I got to move it forward. And I had to file for divorce. I wasn't going to sit there and just let it go on for longer. There needed to be certainty. And that's the thing that's really interesting, is the most challenging part of it is the amount of uncertainty. And human beings don't like uncertainty, right?
Some people thrive on that, but that's usually somebody who has more of an avoidant style. I think that somebody who's got an avoidant attachment style is much more comfortable with uncertainty than an anxious attachment style.
I'm okay with it. And so I don't know if it's an attachment style thing. I don't know if that is for me. There's a reason people read the horoscope every day. You know what I mean? So it's like the uncertainty, the antidote to that is creating certainty and having the uncertainty. Can you be okay with uncertainty and meditate on that and breathe into that and know that? Because every day is uncertain, right? We can say, the sun goes up, the sun goes down. We can point to the things that we can count on, right? That's a grounding point. And that means when I filed for divorce, it was like, choking, but I had to, because I needed to take action. And creating baby steps and taking action actually creates certainty. And it calms down the emotional part of it, because the emotion and the fear and so much can just take you over, where it muddies the whole thing. And I spoke with a woman the other day who has 4 kids, and she was like, well, and it's just an example. Well, he doesn't want to do mediation. He doesn't want to do it. It's too expensive. And I said, of course, he's not going to want to do it. However, you guys need it because you need to make an agreement because of the children are the important thing here. You need to know where they're going, who has them, what the custody is. You got to really create certainty so then the children know, right? They go, oh, we're really getting along right now. Yeah, I get it, but you might not always, right? So there is a really important thing that if you're sitting here listening to this right now, I get you, I feel you, and I understand that it's easier to just put your head in the sand. And maybe you have to do that for a little bit. However, nothing's going to change and it can only get worse. And I know for me, the fighting and the arguments, it was just, I can feel the tenseness in my body right now. And so it's really important to give yourself some grace and take the steps that you need to take. If it's writing down, what are all the steps, right? And if you're not able to do it, it is important to get someone to help you. And because for me, when I could sit down and get help and work with a coach and, outside of my therapist, I was able to take this big overwhelming thing and chop it
Chop
down,
it down.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's the emotion and then there's this and, all of that. And so it's important to create some sense of consistency for your children and for yourself. It's important for you to take care of yourself, work out and heal, go for the walks. Because this isn't a time to turn to booze and turn to other things, because this is a time of stress where people will start smoking again or start doing things because that gives them a sense of control. So your control is, I'm going to take this on as a opportunity, right, to do right by my children and find peace for myself. And always the thing that's really key too with this, with children, is when you're talking to your co-parent, is always saying, I'm doing what's best for the children, not using them as a pawn or anything. It's saying, this is because I make choices every day that I don't necessarily want for me, that I don't actually want to do. Okay. Because it's best for my kid.
Absolutely. And you spoke to something that I often say to parents, and I've seen it. Like I have one in particular, somebody that I work with, and the children have just been so put in the middle of this conflict, and it's really sad to me. And what's also really sad to me is the blame finger pointing game, that lack of personal, responsibility. And I get it when things fall apart, kind of, for lack of a better word, and there's a decision to separate or to divorce, there can be this sense of, well, if you would have been different, if you would have been a different, if you, which becomes F you, right? Then and then there's that game that happens. But what you spoke to is really important. So when somebody's moving through there's this inner awareness, this isn't working, I need to leave. Women need financial empowerment. I mean, it's really important. I know that's part of what we both do through our work, is helping to empower women, helping women to remember that they have the ability to support themselves, and how can they support themselves, right? Moving through this process, because to stay, in a situation that isn't empowering, that really depletes somebody, your kids suffer. It's going to be tricky. It is going to be an adjustment for kids to navigate. Oh, I go to moms now, or I go to dads, or two moms, or whatever the configuration is. What helps kids is something you spoke to, which is consistency, and also a stable environment, having
Yeah.
a routine. Okay, so now I'm at dad's, and here's where all my stuff is. Now I'm at my mom's, here's where they are. Oh, and my parents get along, they're not fighting with each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting, because we have triggers and we get triggered. And when we're angry and we're playing the blame game, one finger pointing, you've got three fingers pointing out. yeah, if you could be better, if you could, I mean, that's just why, right? Don't even bother with that insanity. And I get it. It's just, yeah, I could have done things different. I sit here and go, you know, I have moments where I'm like, was this really the best choice? Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have, because the mind will get into all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And the thing is, this is what happened, happened. You chose each other. You went through what you needed to do on a soul level and like looking at this spiritually, and take out the story, right? Like the story is there, and there's a grieving process and all of it. And so I know my son got a therapist so he could talk about his feelings. And like it was important. His dad didn't want to pay for it. I said, this is really important. It was so important for me to have, for him to do it. And then I wasn't going to fight. Like you got to we all have to understand, if you're in the beginning stages of this, cool. Like you have to find some clarity so that you can take the story out, and the story of you could have this or you could have that. And, you know,
Well, there is a place for that, right? Like you spoke to. There is a place for that anger because there is a
of
grieving,
course,
right? So, but the piece that's really important that you and I are both speaking to is that you deal with that yourself. You don't put it on your kids. You don't
no,
badmouth the parent to your child ever, because it ironically, when you badmouth the other parent,
you
your
can't do
child
that.
resents you, not that other parent. If you just
Yeah.
allow that child to have a relationship with the other co-parent, they'll see who they are. They see it. So you don't badmouth the parents, but there is that process, which is why working with a therapist, a spiritual counselor, a coach, who's somebody that you can bring those feelings to, so you have a place to what I call unpack your basket, but you don't dump that on your kid, which is
And
really
if you
hard.
do,
You
let me just
repair
hop
the
in here.
rupture. You
What?
repair the rupture. I
Yeah.
call it repair the rupture.
Yeah. Sorry. I got like very, what I was going to say is, when you, if you do, because I'm not perfect and I've done stuff and I have things, it's important that you're talking to someone, because what happens is you start, it starts to leak the things that are going on with your co-parent, right? Because you're dealing with lawyers, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with like intensity, and then all of a sudden you can project onto your children the crap that you have for your co-parent, because you're angry, and anger's fine, right? Like fine. It's just that you need to have a place where you're taking it out. I mean, listen, you know, go get a dish and throw it and break it, whatever you need to do, or go, you know, go take a class and punch, or like take a boxing class. But the main thing is this, that the repair is key, because then the child learns that when there's a fight, this is what we do. We're going to fight, we're going to disagree, and then there's a repair. And a
Yes.
lot of adults don't know how to do that. And so there's an opportunity with your kids, and I want to talk about this, is because of the steps of separation, moving into another room, if you're doing that, or you have that ability to have another room, right? Moving, and then essentially if you're moving out, or if you're staying home and you're staying in the house and they're moving out. The thing to understand is, the child, when I moved out, I didn't take everything. I left most of the stuff because there would be things that became argumentative, like the wah, and I was like, keep it, have it, go for it. I'm not interested in changing the home that my child knows. I don't need to do that. Most kids have enough stuff to go into 3 homes, let alone 2. And so it's about becoming resourceful and going, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then I made sure that when I created a new home for my son, the consistency was, he got the same bed that he sleeps on, because it's an IKEA bed. I hung things up on the wall in the same way. I literally found the same carpet or rug, or what area rug, that we have in our other house. And then there's this like magical manifesting opportunity that starts to happen, so that you're starting anew, right? That was the beauty of moving out. It's like, I could just get rid of stuff and be done with it. And then there were moments like, you know, so then your children, because going to the other house is going to be tricky, and there's going to be things that come up of your own worthiness. And then people end to throw money at their children and buying things, as opposed to just being with them and sitting and reading a book. And again, if you have teenagers and older, then it's basically doing the things with them that are fun. And that's not where I'm coming from. I have a child under 10. And so it's more of understanding the psychological of where they are. And so I even had said to my son, I said, listen, I just want to say that I'm super sorry about this. And he said, I'd rather you be living together fighting. And I said, I understand. He goes, well, 3 years and then you're going to come back. And I said, I don't know if that's going to happen, right? That's what he would like to have happen. And it was really important that I said, listen, I just want you to know that the fighting and all that wasn't good for me or for him, for Abba. And so we had to do this to find our peace. And I said, you didn't have a choice in the matter. And I want you to know that I love you and I'm sorry about that. And that this happened, and this is what we needed to do for us. And so then the children understand and, that, okay, you needed to take care of you as well. And so there's so many traps that come with it. And again, the emotional part of it is being able to take care of that, the failure and all the things and the fear. And just know that you're not alone. And like the key point that I want to make really here is divorce is an initiation. You are going to change your identity. You are no longer part of a family, right? You're no longer the wife or the husband of a family. Now, if you're in a good situation where you guys can then people travel together with them and they basically create another way of living, like the way the family is, that's why calling them a co-parent is really important, so that you can move in that direction than calling them your ex or things like that. Is that it's just really important with this initiation that you're going to go through the stages of it and that you're going to be okay with this part, that you're going to let that go, let that be the offering, and then go through the steps of dealing with the isolation. And there's so many things that come with it, but being able to move out, getting the boxes, doing that, so many people stay because that key piece is too daunting. And it's understandable. However, if you're fighting in front of your kids, you're teaching your kids what a marriage is. You're teaching your kids what a relationship is. Absolutely. So that was the thing that really turned it for me and turned the corner, that I could not do it anymore.
Yeah, I agree with all that you stated. As somebody who has been counseling moms and parents for over 23 years, it's really that family dynamic. What's important to remember is that even though sometimes people will say, well, I don't really do that. I don't really say that, or we've stopped, but that stuff goes into your kids, and you see it by the partners that they choose. You see when they're with somebody who doesn't necessarily treat them well, or their partner speaks to them, their boyfriend or girlfriend speaks to them the way your co-parent spoke to you, or you spoke to your co-parent, and you're seeing it in front of you. I think it's such an interesting transformational path, right? Life offers all these different paths. So you're single, and then you grieve your singlehood as you get into a couplehood, and then you have, if you bring a child, and then and if you decide to get married, then that couplehood becomes a different level of relationship. And then there's the parenting, and then there's, if you choose to dissolve that marital relationship and you're going into a different configuration, it's so essential to remember that you're continually evolving. So for those of you that are listening to this, for those of you that are watching this, what's really paramount is that you receive support to navigate this, because the sitting in your chair and listening to what's between your ears will make you crazy. Like, if something isn't working or isn't workable, staying doesn't make it so. If something is workable and you want to give yourself a certain amount of time, okay, we'll work on this, we'll see where it goes a year from now, 90 days from now. But I think that we are living in a time where, again, things are sped up. So the intensity of these times is really compelling people to look deeply at who is in your life and what is in your life. Certainly, your leaving, this relationship in the way that you did was exacerbated by being on the lockdown, by being with somebody, this intensity of being with somebody and saying, is this how I want to live my life? Is this who I want to live my life with? And then when you reach that decision making point where you're going, okay, this isn't, they aren't, and then it's really chunking it down into little bite-sized pieces. Like just looking for another place is overwhelming when you are a working person or you're a really hands-on parent. Where do you look? Where do you go? How do you decide how much you have? Is co-parent going to help you financially? If not, what can you do? It's such a different time that we're living in, and there are people that will help you navigate these times. So, Hillary, like, thank you for sharing this wisdom and sharing your experience so that nobody has to stay unhappy. Being unhappy and being a martyr, and I know that triggers people, right? I'm not a martyr, I'm doing what's right for the kids. When you take care of your life, you are taking care of your children. Young said that the greatest burden on a child is a parent who has an unfulfilled life. So
Yeah,
there's a
it's
pathway,
really good.
right? There's a pathway to peace.
Yeah. And I just want to end with this point, if I may, is the question of when I'm with this person and when that person's with me, who are we? And are we our best versions? And understanding the trauma bonds and those things. And if you're getting an
Yes.
answer of no, then it's like the respect of your soul's journey. Hey, you know what? This isn't making me my best self. This is not making you your best self. We had a really good round. The best thing that we did is we made children.
Yep.
So we need to take the next steps. What do you suggest? Right? So there's so many opportunities here that you don't have to come in angry and fighting. It just is, let's be adults, and this just isn't working, and can we just move the story and be with this now? And that's it. And I know there's so many different scenarios because people cheat or have affairs, and there's so many levels. But regardless of the story, coming really down to this place of who is it that I am in the world, and am I happy with the way that I am when I'm with this person? Do I feel fulfilled? And do I feel fulfilled? Am I living my life?
Right.
And is that person supporting me to live my life, and vice versa? And if you've outgrown each other, or maybe you never were like able on the same page, there's just evidence everywhere. And having somebody to help you get clarity, the clarity's great because then you're like, whoa, there's light. Turn off the lights. I don't know what to do. Plug in a light, turn on the light. You're like, oh, wow. And then that little steps. And I'll say, I had a friend of mine who's, or like, a woman that I know, that I literally, when I moved, I gave my boxes to her, right? Don't get money to be the excuse or find any of the excuses, because you can get so many things free, and the community and the people will help you through the initiation, because you're not supposed to be doing it alone at all.
I love that community. So leaning in to your community, and I know it can be really humbling to reach out to somebody and share, and that's why it's important to have a sacred circle of people like that you really trust, who really want your highest and best, not people that are going to jump on the she's this and he's that, because that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
And it, you're going to have your feelings, I'm going to, before Hillary and I stop, I'm going to make sure you know how to reach her. I also want to speak to this word story, because I can remember when I was counseling somebody and I said to them, well, I know that this is your story. And they had a really hard time hearing that. So I want to speak to what that means exactly. So we have childhoods, we have experiences that we have in our emotional bank book, right? For lack of a better description, it's part of our experiences. And we create certain coping strategies to get through and navigate what happened in our childhoods or early adulthoods. And we create certain beliefs, and that become the laws of our life. This is how we live our life. This is how people do this. This is how I do this. This is where I came from. This is why I do this. And it becomes, for lack of a better word, our identity. It becomes the raison d'etre for our life. And so the opportunity to recreate something, I apologize, there's really loud background noise, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. But we have an opportunity to recreate a new storyline for our lives. Things happened when we were younger, and everything that happens ultimately is for us when we are able to step away from that belief that we are powerless. We may have things that have happened to us that we had no control over, but we're not helpless, because there's people like Hillary, there's people like me that are there, that are your cheerleaders, that have been through it, and we've gotten to the other side, so we can help you cross that bridge. And so you're not bad, you're not wrong when somebody says that's your story. It's about, are you willing to lay down those um, limiting beliefs that you argue for, that you say that this is why I do this and this is why I'm doing this? You can just change it. It takes work, it takes commitment, it takes a desire to live a more transformed life. And Hillary can help you with that if you are at the very beginning stages or if you're wading through the middle. So, Hillary, will you please tell people how they can connect with you?
Yeah, thank you so much. I love everything you just said. It's very, very useful, and I get it. So you can find me at HillaryRubin.com. There's two L's in Hillary, and on there is a tons of free cool stuff. I have a mini training on the 5 mindset shifts to save your sanity through divorce with kids. Some of the things I spoke here, and there's that training. Also, a clarity session. You can go and apply for a clarity session, and that's totally, both of them are complimentary. They're totally free, so that you can have a conversation to really be clear with where you're at, right? You might be struggling with telling your kids. So many people are like, how do I tell them, right? That's something that I really know how to do, and we did it very successfully, and at a time that really worked for my kids, for my son. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram as well. I have lots of good stuff there at the handles Hillary Rubin. And there's two L's, like I said, in Hillary. People always put one L, two.
Beautiful. For double love. There
Yeah.
you go. Love and
Lots of
light.
laughs. Lots
That,
of laughs.
yes. Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Hillary, for being here. It's been a delight to have a dialogue with you. I will make sure in the liner notes, the show notes, that people know exactly where to go to reach you. And so you will have all that information, beautiful people. And I invite you to share, to subscribe, to like this show, so that we can spread the wisdom, share this wisdom. So thank you so much, Hillary,
Thank you.
for being here. What a joy. What a complete joy. And so everyone, I invite you to remember 3 really important points. You are powerful beyond measure, loved beyond description, and a force for good in the world. So go forth and spread your magic, spread love, and know that we will be here next episode, next time. And I look forward to seeing you. Peace and many blessings.